The humiliation. The trade negotiation that changed everything. The golden spires of Velthera Prime pierced the purple sky like gleaming daggers, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 suns that bathed the capital city in an eternal shimmering twilight. High above the bustling markets and floating platforms, in the crystal dome of the Grand Commerce Hall, High Merchant Zorax Kelthon reclined on his ornate throne of carved meteor stone, his 6 arms casually draped across its armrests. Zorax was an impressive figure even by Veltheran standards. His blue-green skin bore the distinctive silver markings that indicated his noble birth, while his elongated skull was crowned with a magnificent headdress of rare crystals that chimed softly with each movement. His 4 eyes, arranged in pairs above and below his prominent cheekbones, surveyed his court with the cold calculation of a predator evaluating prey. The Veltherans had ruled this sector of the galaxy for over 8 centuries, their merchant empire built on superior technology and ruthless business practices. They were known throughout known space as cunning traders who could sell sand to desert dwellers and ice to frozen worlds. More importantly, they had never encountered a species they couldn't dominate through either technological superiority or economic manipulation. Today promised to be particularly entertaining. A human delegation had requested an audience, presumably to grovel for trading rights in Veltheran space. Zorax had heard whispers about these newcomers from the outer rim of the galaxy, primitive bipeds from a backwater world called Earth, barely capable of faster-than-light travel, desperately seeking their place among the established galactic civilizations. The massive doors of the chamber, each carved from a single piece of crystallized starlight, slowly opened with a harmonic resonance that filled the air. The human delegation entered, their dark clothing and simple appearance a stark contrast to the flowing, luminescent robes worn by every Veltheran in the hall. At the head of the group walked a man who immediately caught Zorax's attention, though not for reasons the human might have hoped. Captain Marcus Chen stood perhaps 6 feet tall, with weathered brown skin that spoke of long years under various suns. His black hair was streaked with premature gray, and his dark eyes held an intelligence that seemed to catalog every detail of the opulent chamber. What struck Zorax most, however, were the man's hands. They were calloused and scarred, clearly belonging to someone who had worked with tools and machinery rather than lived a life of luxury. Behind Marcus walked 3 other humans, 2 men and a woman, all carrying themselves with a quiet dignity that Zorax found mildly irritating. They should have been overwhelmed by the grandeur surrounding them, intimidated by the obvious superiority of Veltheran civilization. Instead, they appeared merely curious, observing everything with the detached interest of scientists studying an interesting specimen. "Your Excellence," Marcus said, offering a respectful bow that somehow managed to convey courtesy without subservience. "I am Captain Marcus Chen, representing the Terran Colonial Authority. We come seeking the possibility of mutually beneficial trade agreements between our peoples." A ripple of barely suppressed laughter ran through the assembled Veltheran nobles. The idea that these primitives could offer anything of value to the mighty Veltheran Empire was absurd on its face. Zorax raised one of his hands, and the chamber fell silent. "Trade." Zorax's voice carried the honeyed tones of a practiced merchant, but underneath lay something sharp and cruel. "Tell me, Captain Chen, what could your developing civilization possibly offer that we cannot produce ourselves with far superior methods?" Marcus showed no sign of taking offense at the barely veiled insult. "Raw materials, unique biological compounds from Earth's diverse ecosystems, and manufacturing capacity. Our preliminary surveys suggest there might be resources on our world that could prove valuable to Veltheran industry." "Resources," Zorax mused, letting the word hang in the air like an unpleasant smell. He gestured with another arm toward the vast chamber around them. "Captain, do you see these walls? This crystal was harvested from the core of a collapsed star. The metal framework was forged in the heart of a gas giant. We reshape matter at the molecular level for our amusement. What rocks and plants could your little mud ball possibly provide that we would consider worthwhile?" The insult was deliberate and cutting, designed to put the humans in their place. Around the chamber, Veltheran nobles whispered among themselves, their musical voices creating a background chorus of disdain. Marcus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but his voice remained steady. Perhaps we've misjudged the situation. However, we believe there's always value in cultural and technological exchange between civilized species. Civilized. Zorax's 4 eyes widened in mock surprise. Captain, your species has barely achieved interstellar flight. Your ships are crude assemblies of metal and combustion. Your weapons are primitive projectile systems that our children use as toys. In what sense do you consider yourselves civilized? The woman in Marcus's delegation, Dr. Sarah Kim, stepped forward slightly. Her Asian features were composed, but her eyes flashed with controlled anger. Your Excellence, perhaps we could demonstrate some of our technological capabilities that might interest Veltheran merchants. Zorax waved dismissively with 2 arms simultaneously. Demonstrations would be unnecessary and frankly insulting to my intelligence. However, I am not entirely without mercy. He leaned forward on his throne, his expression taking on the appearance of benevolent condescension. I am prepared to offer your species a trade agreement, one that reflects our respective positions in the galactic hierarchy. Marcus exchanged glances with his companions. We're listening. Excellent. Zorax clapped his hands together, the sound echoing through the chamber. Here are my terms. Earth will provide raw materials, specifically rare earth elements and biological specimens, to Veltheran extraction companies. In return, we will provide you with basic technological upgrades, perhaps advancing your civilization by 50 or 60 years. The offer was obviously one-sided, designed to reduce Earth to nothing more than a resource colony. Dr. Kim opened her mouth to speak, but Marcus raised a hand to stop her. And in terms of governance of this arrangement? Marcus asked. Simple, Zorax replied. Velthera will establish administrative centers on Earth to oversee resource extraction and ensure compliance with our quality standards. Your people will work under Veltheran supervision, naturally. The chamber fell silent. Every Veltheran present understood what was being offered. Complete subjugation disguised as a trade agreement. It was a pattern they had followed on dozens of worlds, reducing proud civilizations to servant states in all but name. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. Your Excellence, while we appreciate the generosity of your offer, I'm afraid we cannot accept terms that would essentially reduce our world to colonial status. Zorax's expression shifted, becoming predatory. This was the part he enjoyed most. I see. Then perhaps you misunderstand your position, Captain. This is not a negotiation between equals. This is me offering charity to a species that has nothing I want and everything to lose. The High Merchant rose from his throne, his impressive height and multiple arms making him a formidable presence. However, I am feeling particularly generous today. I have a counter-proposal that will demonstrate the true nature of our relationship. He gestured toward a side chamber, and a figure emerged that made the entire human delegation freeze in surprise. Lyria Kelthun, Zorax's daughter, glided into the main chamber with the fluid grace typical of her species. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her deep blue skin marked with the intricate silver patterns that indicated her royal bloodline. Her large, luminous eyes held an intelligence that seemed to take in everything at once, while her flowing white hair cascaded past her shoulders like liquid starlight. She was, by any objective standard, breathtakingly beautiful. She was also clearly furious. Behold my daughter, Lyria, Zorax announced with theatrical grandeur. She is considered one of the greatest beauties in the Veltheran Empire, educated in 17 different scientific disciplines, fluent in 43 galactic languages, and heir to a commercial fortune that could purchase entire star systems. Marcus looked confused by this sudden introduction, but he inclined his head respectfully toward Lyria. Lady Lyria, it's an honor to meet you. Lyria's eyes flashed, but she said nothing. Zorax continued his performance. I offer her to you, Captain Chen. A gift, to cement the bond between our species. Take her back to your primitive world. Let her experience firsthand the crude existence you call civilization. When she returns, broken and grateful, she can testify to your people about the vast gulf that separates our civilizations. The chamber erupted in excited whispers. This was unprecedented. No Veltheran noble had ever been offered to an alien species, particularly not the daughter of the High Merchant himself. Dr. Kim stepped forward, her face flushed with anger. Your Excellence, we cannot possibly accept such an arrangement. Lady Lyria is not property to be traded. How typical, Zorax sneered. Even when offered a gift beyond your wildest dreams, you lack the courage to accept it. This is precisely why your species will never amount to anything in galactic politics. Marcus held up a hand to quiet Dr. Kim, his expression thoughtful. The chamber fell silent as everyone waited for his response. When he finally spoke, his words surprised everyone present. I accept. The silence that followed was absolute. Lyria's eyes widened in shock, while Zorax's expression shifted from smug satisfaction to genuine surprise. He had expected the humans to refuse, providing him with another opportunity to demonstrate their weakness and lack of vision. You accept, Zorax repeated, his voice uncertain for the first time in the meeting. Yes, Marcus replied calmly. However, I have conditions. Lady Lyria will come as an honored guest and cultural ambassador, not as property. She will have complete freedom to observe our civilization and form her own opinions, and she will be returned safely to Velthera whenever she chooses to leave. Lyria found her voice at last. I refuse, she declared, her musical voice carrying clearly through the chamber. I will not be used as a pawn in my father's political games, especially not with these primitives. Zorax's 4 eyes narrowed dangerously. You will do as you are told, daughter. This arrangement will serve to demonstrate once and for all the superiority of Veltheran civilization. And if I refuse, then you will be demonstrating that Veltheran resolve is weaker than human courage. Marcus interjected quietly. After all, if the daughter of the High Merchant lacks the strength to face a few months among primitives, what does that say about Veltheran character? The challenge was subtle but clear. Zorax had painted himself into a corner. If Lyria refused, it would suggest that Veltherans were afraid of humans. If she accepted, she would be exposing herself to what he considered a lesser civilization. Lyria looked back and forth between her father and Marcus, her expression cycling through anger, confusion, and something that might have been curiosity. Finally, she spoke. Very well. I will accept this arrangement, but only to prove that no human civilization could possibly impact or influence a daughter of Velthera. Marcus nodded solemnly. Understood. We'll prepare quarters for you aboard our ship. Zorax clapped his hands together, his earlier confidence returning. Excellent. Let it be recorded that on this day, the High Merchant of Velthera demonstrated his generosity by offering his most precious possession to unite our species in understanding. As the formal ceremonies concluded and documents were prepared, Lyria approached Marcus while the other Veltherans were distracted. Why? She asked quietly. Why did you accept this insult? Marcus met her gaze steadily. Because sometimes what appears to be an ending is actually a beginning, Lady Lyria. Your father thinks he's humiliating both of us. He may discover that he's given us something far more valuable than he intended. Lyria studied his face, looking for signs of deception or hidden motives. What she found instead was a quiet confidence that seemed entirely at odds with belonging to a supposedly primitive species. 3 hours later, as the human ship prepared to depart Velthera Prime, Lyria stood in her assigned quarters, staring out at the stars. She had packed only basic necessities, convinced that her stay among the humans would be brief and unpleasant. The ship itself had surprised her. While clearly built with different aesthetic sensibilities than Veltheran vessels, It was far from primitive. The corridors were clean and well-lit, the gravity systems functioned smoothly, and the air recycling created a pleasant environment. Most surprising of all, she had been given quarters that were not only comfortable, but had been specifically adapted for her physiology, including adjustments for her height and gravitational preferences. A soft chime indicated someone requesting entry. "Come in," she called. Marcus entered, carrying a tray with what appeared to be food and drink. "I thought you might be hungry after the long ceremony." Lyria looked at the offering with suspicion. "Is this some sort of primitive human cuisine?" "Actually," Marcus said with a slight smile, "it's Veltheran food. Dr. Kim analyzed the dietary requirements of your species and programmed our food synthesizers accordingly. It should taste exactly like what you're used to eating." This was unexpected. Lyria accepted the tray and sampled the food cautiously. It was, as promised, perfectly prepared according to Veltheran culinary standards. "How did you know to prepare for my physiology?" she asked. "We've been studying Veltheran culture and biology for months in preparation for these negotiations. We wanted to be respectful hosts, regardless of the circumstances that brought you aboard." Lyria set down her eating utensil and studied Marcus carefully. "You planned this, didn't you? You knew my father would make this offer." Marcus sat down across from her, his expression becoming more serious. "Lady Lyria, your father's reputation for using family members as political tools is well documented in galactic intelligence reports. We hoped he might overreach in his attempt to humiliate us. And you were willing to risk your diplomatic mission on this gamble. Sometimes the greatest risks offer the greatest rewards," Marcus replied. "Your father sees you as a pawn to be sacrificed for his political games. We see you as an opportunity for genuine understanding between our species." Lyria was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Finally, she spoke. "You realize that when I return to Velthera, I will report everything I observe about your civilization to the High Council." "We're counting on it," Marcus said with a genuine smile. After all, the truth has a way of speaking for itself. As their ship jumped to hyperspace, beginning the journey toward Earth, neither Lyria nor Marcus could have imagined how profoundly this journey would change not just their own lives, but the balance of power in their entire sector of the galaxy. The game Zorax thought he was winning had only just begun. The revelation. When the daughter returns with the future. 6 months had passed since Lyria Kelthon disappeared into the vast darkness of space aboard a human vessel, and High Merchant Zorax had spent every day since anticipating her return. He imagined her arriving broken, traumatized by exposure to human primitiveness, ready to testify before the Veltheran High Council about the vast superiority of their civilization. Her humiliation would serve as the perfect justification for reducing Earth to a resource colony. But when the sleek vessel dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Velthera system, Zorax felt his first twinge of unease. The ship approaching his homeworld was not the crude human craft that had departed months earlier. This vessel was larger, more elegant, its hull gleaming with an almost organic smoothness that spoke of advanced metallurgy. More troubling still, it was not alone. 7 other ships of similar design accompanied it, maintaining a respectful but unmistakably protective formation. In his private chambers high atop the Grand Commerce Hall, Zorax watched the approaching fleet through his personal viewing portal, his 4 eyes narrowing with concern. His chief advisor, Minister Kelvax, stood beside him, equally perplexed by this unexpected development. "Excellence," Kelvax ventured carefully, "the humans appear to have upgraded their technology significantly during Lady Lyria's absence." Zorax waved dismissively, though his gesture lacked its usual confidence. "Impossible. They've clearly borrowed or stolen superior technology from another species. Humans lack the intellectual capacity for such rapid advancement." But even as he spoke the words, doubt gnawed at him. The approaching ships moved with a precision and grace that suggested not just advanced technology, but a deep understanding of its application. This was not the clumsy mimicry of a species using borrowed tools, but the confident mastery of engineers who understood every component of what they had built. The communication system chimed, indicating an incoming transmission. Zorax accepted the connection, and the familiar image of Captain Marcus Chen appeared on his screen. But like the ships, Marcus had changed during his absence. His simple clothing had been replaced by an elegant uniform that seemed to shimmer with its own internal light. His bearing was more confident, his expression holding a quiet authority that Zorax found distinctly unsettling. "High Merchant Zorax," Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly across the vast distance between them. "I am returning your daughter as promised. I request permission to dock at the Grand Commerce Hall to transfer Lady Lyria to your custody." "Granted," Zorax replied, though he noticed that Marcus had not used the usual honorifics or deferential language expected when addressing Veltheran nobility. "I trust she has learned valuable lessons about the differences between our civilizations." Marcus's slight smile was enigmatic. "She has indeed learned a great deal. I believe you'll find her experiences illuminating." The transmission ended, leaving Zorax staring at a blank screen. Something was wrong. The confidence in Marcus's voice, the advanced ships, the subtle change in diplomatic protocol, all of it suggested developments that did not align with his expectations. 2 hours later, Zorax sat upon his meteor stone throne in the Grand Commerce Hall, surrounded by his full court. Every noble family of importance was present, eager to witness Lady Lyria's humiliation and hear first-hand accounts of human primitiveness. The great chamber buzzed with anticipation as the massive crystallized starlight doors prepared to open. But when the doors swung wide with their harmonic resonance, the figure who entered was not the broken, defeated daughter Zorax had expected. Lyria strode into the chamber with newfound confidence, her luminous eyes bright with purpose. She wore a flowing gown that seemed to blend Veltheran and human design elements, creating something entirely new and surprisingly beautiful. But what truly shocked the assembled court was her obvious pregnancy, her elegant form showing the unmistakable signs of carrying a child. A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. This was unprecedented. No Veltheran noble had ever carried the offspring of an alien species. The political and social implications were staggering. Behind Lyria walked Marcus Chen and Dr. Sarah Kim, both wearing the same shimmering uniforms that spoke of technological advancement far beyond what anyone had expected from humanity. They moved with quiet dignity, apparently unimpressed by the opulent grandeur that surrounded them. Zorax rose from his throne, his multiple arms trembling with rage. "Daughter, what is the meaning of this obscenity?" Lyria stopped in the center of the chamber and looked up at her father without fear. When she spoke, her voice carried to every corner of the vast space. "Hello, Father. I have returned to report on my experiences among humanity as you requested. You carry the spawn of an alien." Zorax thundered, his careful political composure cracking under the weight of his fury. "You have disgraced our bloodline, our noble house, our entire species. Have I?" Lyria asked calmly. "Or have I given our species something far more valuable than you can imagine?" The chamber fell silent, every noble straining to hear her words. Lyria placed a protective hand over her growing belly and continued. "When I left Velthera 6 months ago, I believed as you do that humanity was a primitive species unworthy of our attention. I expected to find crude technology, barbaric customs, and inferior minds. What I discovered instead was a civilization that challenges everything we thought we knew about intelligence, innovation, and the potential for growth." Dr. Kim stepped forward, activating a small device that projected holographic images into the air above the assembled court. The first image showed Earth as seen from space, a blue-green world of stunning beauty. "This is Earth," Lyria continued. "A world that achieved faster than light travel not through the gradual accumulation of knowledge over millennia, as we did, but through rapid innovation and collaborative problem-solving in less than 2 centuries. The images shifted, showing human cities, laboratories, and spaceports. Unlike the crystal spires and floating platforms of Velthera, These structures seemed to grow organically from their surroundings, blending technology with natural forms in ways that were both functional and beautiful. Their approach to technology is fundamentally different from ours, Lyria explained. Where we refine and perfect existing systems over generations, humans constantly innovate, creating entirely new solutions to problems we never knew existed. Zorax interrupted with a dismissive wave. Pretty images prove nothing. Show me weapons, show me ships, show me something of actual value rather than primitive aesthetics. Marcus stepped forward for the first time since entering the chamber. With your permission, Excellence, I believe Lady Lyria is trying to explain that you've been operating under false assumptions about human capabilities. Speak plainly, primitive. Marcus's expression didn't change at the insult. Very well. The ship that brought Lady Lyria to Earth 6 months ago was indeed representative of our technology at that time. What you see today represents 6 months of development based on principles Lady Lyria helped us understand about Veltheran engineering. The holographic display shifted again, this time showing detailed schematics of the human vessels waiting in orbit. Gasps echoed through the chamber as the assembled nobles realized what they were seeing. These ships incorporate quantum-fold drives capable of crossing the galaxy in weeks rather than months, Dr. Kim explained. Their defensive systems use adaptive shield matrices that learn from each attack. Their weapons can phase through conventional shields while remaining completely harmless to organic life. Minister Kelvax leaned forward from his position near the throne. Impossible. Such advancement would require. Require what? Marcus asked. Centuries of gradual development. That's the Veltheran way, Minister. Humans approach problems differently. We innovate rapidly, share knowledge freely, and treat every challenge as an opportunity for growth rather than a threat to established order. Zorax's confidence was rapidly crumbling, but he made one last attempt to regain control of the situation. Even if what you claim is true, you remain a small, isolated species on the rim of the galaxy. Numbers matter in galactic politics. Lyria smiled, and for the first time since her return, her expression held genuine warmth. Father, may I present the real reason for my return? She gestured toward the great doors, which opened once again. But this time, instead of a small delegation, representatives from dozens of species filed into the chamber. Zorax recognized some of them. The crystalline Zephyrians, the multi-armed Korthak, the energy beings known as the Luminary. Others were completely unknown to him. What is this? He demanded. The Terran Alliance, Marcus replied. 47 species who have chosen to join humanity in a new model of galactic cooperation. Not the dominance and subjugation that characterizes most galactic empires, but genuine partnership based on mutual respect and shared innovation. The Luminary representative, a being of pure energy contained within a sophisticated mechanical framework, spoke in harmonics that the chamber's translation systems converted to understandable speech. High Merchant Zorax, we have observed Veltheran expansion for centuries. Your methods are efficient, but they stifle growth and innovation. Humanity offers something different. One of the Korthak delegates added, in 6 months of partnership with humans, my species has made technological advances that would have taken us decades to achieve alone. They share knowledge freely, collaborate without demanding dominance, and treat every species as having unique value. Zorax looked around the chamber in growing panic. The assembled representatives represented economic and military power that dwarfed even the Veltheran Empire. If they were truly united under human leadership, this is some kind of trick, he declared desperately. Humans lack the sophistication for such complex alliance building. Lyria stepped closer to her father's throne, her expression becoming serious. That's where you're wrong, Father. And that's why this child I carry represents the future of our galaxy. She gestured to her belly, her voice taking on a tone of scientific fascination. Human Veltheran hybrid genetics are creating something entirely new. This child will possess the innovative flexibility of humanity combined with the analytical depth of Veltheran intelligence. But more than that, the pregnancy itself has triggered changes in both my physiology and my neural pathways. Dr. Kim activated her device again, this time showing complex biological scans. Lady Lyria's brain has developed new neural connections that allow her to process information in ways neither species can achieve alone. She can now understand 11-dimensional mathematics intuitively, perceive quantum possibilities directly, and synthesize knowledge at speeds that exceed our most advanced computers. The child will be born with these enhanced capabilities as a baseline, Lyria continued. But more importantly, these traits appear to be communicable through close contact. The dozen Veltheran volunteers who worked with the research team have all begun developing similar neural enhancement. The implications hit Zorax like a physical blow. You're talking about evolving beyond our current species' limitations. Exactly, Marcus confirmed. This isn't about one species conquering another. It's about all of us evolving together into something greater than any of us could become alone. Lyria moved to stand directly before her father's throne. When you sent me to humiliate humanity, you thought you were demonstrating Veltheran superiority. Instead, you created the catalyst for the next stage of galactic evolution. Zorax stared at his daughter, seeing her truly for the first time. The confidence, the enhanced intelligence, the protective instincts toward the child she carried, all of it spoke to capabilities far beyond what either species had possessed before. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. Marcus stepped forward, his expression diplomatic but firm. "That depends on you, Excellence. The Terran Alliance extends an invitation to the Veltheran Empire to join as equal partners. Your commercial expertise and technological knowledge would be valuable additions to our collaborative model. And if we refuse, then you remain as you are," Lyria answered. "A powerful but stagnant empire, watching as the rest of the galaxy evolves beyond your ability to compete or control." Zorax looked around his grand chamber, seeing it suddenly not as a symbol of power, but as a beautiful cage that had prevented his people from growing. The choice before him was clear: adapt or become irrelevant. The sound of small, running feet echoed through the chamber as a child no more than 2 years old burst through the great doors, moving with inhuman speed and grace. The toddler had Lyria's luminous eyes, but Marcus's determined expression, and as it ran toward its parents, small objects throughout the chamber began floating in response to some invisible force. "Our son developed telekinetic abilities yesterday," Lyria explained casually as she scooped up the child. "Dr. Kim believes it's a result of quantum neural integration that won't stabilize until he's older." The child looked directly at Zorax with ancient, knowing eyes and spoke a single word in perfect Veltheran: "Grandfather." In that moment, staring into the face of a future he had never imagined possible, High Merchant Zorax Kelfon made the decision that would reshape galactic civilization. "Draft the Alliance documents," he told his stunned court. "It appears the Veltheran Empire has a great deal to learn about the art of true innovation." As celebration erupted throughout the chamber and representatives from dozens of species began planning humanity's newest partnership, Marcus Chen allowed himself a small smile. The gamble they had taken 6 months earlier had paid off in ways none of them could have predicted. The age of galactic cooperation had begun, and it all started with one alien's failed attempt at humiliation.